I wanted to just tell you all at least 5 points. One, who I am. Secondly, where I'm from. Thirdly, where I'm going. Fourth, where we are going as a collaborative effort. And how do we get there? So firstly, my name is Richardson. I'm from the great city of Shreveport, Louisiana. Unfortunately, it has the record of incarcerating most of the people in the state of Louisiana. I haven't personally served any time, but my family, my mother and my father both have. In 1997, September 16th to be exactly, first off, let me start with saying that my mother and father have never aspired to get any form of minimum wage job. You know, they believed in the heart of the American dream, and they did not want to live a life of punching in hours. And so my mother and father opened up a shop by the name of Culture, which sold all of the fancy clothing that was hot at the time, the FUBU shoes, so on and so forth. And, you know, at that time, my mother and father had an investor that pulled out last minute. Surrounded around uncertainty and, you know, just disappointment, my mother and father made a life-altering decision, and that was to rob a bank. My mother sat outside, you know, keeping watch of the police, making sure that no one came into the bank, whereas my father actually went inside with his nephew. As a first-time offender in the state of Louisiana, where the money was recovered and no one received any medical treatment, less than only went to the hospital. My father was sentenced to 60 years as a first-time offender in the state of Louisiana, and my mother took a plea deal for 2 7-year sentences and 1 5-year sentence, all run together. As of in September, actually, or August, I believe, October. There we go. She would have served at least 15. Well, she would have been home for 15 years, while my father still serves in prison. Secondly, where am I from? As I said, I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana, and I've just mentioned my set of circumstances. But, you know, when Miss Piper tells us, she says, hey, tell a story to the person right next to you. I told him a story when it became real for me. And this was about 3 or 4 years ago when I, you know, decided to be bold enough to testify before the Louisiana Public Service Commission. At the time, Securus had begun raising their phone rates, as they do frequently, to families here in the state of Louisiana. And, you know, we just happened to be impacted by that. And my mother says, Freedom, if there's anything that you can do to change the culture or to, you know, challenge the issue head on, what would it be? And, you know, just in time, it happened to be a public service commission that was coming up. Essentially, whenever my father first got incarcerated, we were paying 99 cents per phone call for a 25-minute phone call with our father. Now, if you're a child of an incarcerated parent, you know that those phone calls and those 2 visits that you get a month mean everything. They're the thing that keep your family together and make sure that, you know, your father has the opportunity to instill in you the values that we try to instill in all of our little ones. And so it was 99 cents for a 25-minute phone call. You know, the next year they raised it, and today it's $3.25 for a 15-minute phone call. So not only did they increase the cost, but they decreased the amount of time that you're able to spend with your loved one. Now, families that are living in Cattle Parish, St. Helena Parish, or anywhere else across the state find it increasingly difficult to get to Angola State Prison. Whether it's gas, whether it's a car, whether it's family members that you're trying to bring along with you. Those phone calls, those emails, and those writers that you the letters that you write mean everything to a family like mine. So it became real whenever statistics had shown that Securus at the time, whenever I testified before the Louisiana Public Service Commission, revealed that at least $6 million of hardworking taxpayer dollars had been stolen from incarcerated families. The chairman of the committee fined them $15,000 for the $6 million that was stolen. Now, at that time, I wasn't, you know, the most scholarly student in math, but I just knew that $15,000 wasn't even 10% of the $6 million that they stole from Louisiana families. And thirdly, you know, we have to look at how it is that we got here. You have the crime bill that was passed in 1994 under the Clintons, and, you know, had a lot of politicians that were taking a very narrow-minded approach to the issue. You know, crime was at a 25-year low, and you had folks that, you know, weren't making money. You had, here in the state of Louisiana, we have the same issue that we have now that we had in the past, which is where the price of oil decreased. And because that is our greatest export, you know, we had all of this land and we didn't know what to do with it. So what do? You find a trend that's already popular and you start building on it. Whenever the crime bill came out in 1994, you had the state of Louisiana begin building prisons because they received federal contracts to do so. And so as a result of those get tough on crime laws, the 3-strike laws, so on and so forth, you had families that were torn apart. But I'm here to say today I've defied every statistic that's ever been placed against me. At the age of 17, I'm a proud student at Tulane University, studying American government and global communication and policy, along with my twin brother, who's also 17. My oldest brother attends Meharry Dental School in Nashville, Tennessee. My oldest brother before him actually just got his business degree last year in New Jersey. My third oldest brother is a service member of the United States military, along with my father, who previously served in the Navy, and my mother, who came from a background of school teachers and also served in Operation Desert Storm. So had my father been home, I can't tell you what else I could have been able to accomplish. But let me tell you this, we have a way to go, and I think the first thing, not only have we heard the impactful stories of those that have come before me, but we have to look at the issues. And once we see the issues, we have to see what it is that we can do in order to affect change. Recently, there's a bill that's been submitted to the state's capitol, and I'll finish here because I'm being shown it's my time. But Senate Bill 139, that's authored by State Senator Danny Martini. He's up in the Metairie area. He's introducing a bill that would say that if you've served 20 years of time and at least 45 years of age, you should be able to be considered for parole. Now, Republicans and Democrats alike that are getting incentives from private-owned prisons here in the state of Louisiana are going to label it as a get-out-of-jail-free card for everybody else that's in there. But this is simply the opportunity to be considered for parole. Next Tuesday, actually, they'll start taking votes and hearing on this bill, and there's so many other pieces of legislation that are coming forth. So what I've been trying to do, I was at the state capitol last week, lobbying our state's legislators and letting them know that, whenever you take away a loved one or give someone a death sentence, you tear at the very fabric of a family and the institution that they stand for. So I'm hoping that if, you all are hearing our stories and hearing our pains and our suffering, that you all are moved and compelled to do the work that Christ has sent us all to do, which is to help thy neighbor, essentially. So I thank you for the time that you've allotted me. I hope that you all stay informed on the issues and begin fighting for legislation that's imperative to not only my family, but the bold members behind me and so many other families across the state of Louisiana. Thank you all so much, and I hope that we can begin doing this work.